I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated business, central, and NAV users who struggle to use their systems and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. In this next season of the Get Your New View podcast, I'd like you to meet Kim Congleton. Kim and I are the co-owners of New View Strategies, and this season, we'll be talking with you all about change management and cheese. Hey, everybody, it's Carrie and Kim, and we're back here talking about change management and cheese. This episode, we're talking to you about what is your alternative to change. What can you do if you can't change? We talked in the last episode about what happens if you don't change. And sometimes I think of that as a conscious choice, right? We've decided not to change. And of course, there's lots of reasons, most of them not good reasons to choose not to change. But what if we truly can't? What if our hands are tied and we're not able to? And this makes me think of a customer that I had recently, and we'll use the lemonade stand as an example again. And I just love this customer. They have such a great team, and they are funded by the government. So they get funds periodically and according to whatever programs are going on. So let's pretend our lemonade stand was funded by the government, right? And they had to apply for grants and all sorts of different things to bring in revenue and to propel their programs forward. And sometimes it just doesn't happen for them. Sometimes it's not their time to have the funding, and they had a time in the history of their lemonade stand that they didn't have a whole lot of funding. They had a system that was working okay with them, but it wasn't great. And they had explored the options of how they could upgrade or do something else, buy a different program, do some different things to make some of the changes that were holding them back happen. And they couldn't figure out how to make it work without some proper funding. So they got creative in their thinking and started thinking about what else they could do with the limitations that they had in place. And they did a great job. They documented what their limitations were. And that was a big thing, understanding what the limitations were and then really figuring out what they could do about that and how they could work around it. And when they got in contact with us for us to take a look at it, they were one of those companies who had a pretty big list of things and needed some help distilling what they could do. And we helped them to put together a program of continuous incremental improvement. And it was all focused around process improvement. It really had nothing to do with their software because they were limited in that area. It had a lot to do with helping them to think through how they could make changes in their processes to create improvement in how things were going. So they had to deal with change in a much different way. They knew that they had a limitation with money. First of all, they didn't have funds to be able to spend a whole lot, so they had to keep it on a very low budget. And they had some limitations with what they could do with their system. There were just some choices they made in the past that weren't relevant anymore and that were truly holding them back. But the one thing that they could control was their mindset, how they thought about change and how they could have improvement come through their system by being willing to do things differently. So when we had meetings with the folks from the lemonade stand, we often had discussions of, we used to do it that way, how are we going to do it now? That was kind of the mantra that everybody knew we used to do it some way. And it really was the way they were doing it currently. And they were really trying to challenge themselves to think about how they would do it differently. So Kim, have you had some examples of customers who've had a similar situation?
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of jumps out in my mind is I had a customer, we'll use the lemonade stand again, who implemented a software, a WMS, and a warehouse management system. Let me not talk in acronyms for everybody, but they implemented it. And when they went live, they really only implemented like 10% of the solution. And they weren't extremely happy, and which sometimes happens. You just run out of time in a project and you can only do so much. And they kind of were not happy with the system, but yet they actually realized they weren't using it all either. So there were some people that were like, oh, we need to get rid of this. The system sucks. This version is no good. And what they did though is kind of said, okay, let's take a step back and let's look at this, rather than just scrap it and rather than try and go to some other version, let's make sure that we're not the issue. So they had us come in and take a look at what they were using, what they weren't using, look at their processes, and really kind of go through and say, all right, well, you're only using this. We could change this process and use this much more of the system. So, I think it's really key to be able to take a step back and maybe look at things in a different way, especially when you do have limitations. And, there's a fair amount of us out there right now that have limitations because of maybe stuff in the last year.
Yeah. That is so cool that you brought that up, because we talk about optimization all the time. And I swear we need to develop a game around level of optimization. Like, what's the percentage? Yeah. If we could measure it exactly, I'd start taking bets on it, because unfortunately we find out that it's really low for a lot of companies, that a lot of companies put a system in place and they intend to utilize a lot more, right? You see that in the demos that we go through and the RFPs that are developed that have all these things. And then in that first year, especially, this much goes into place. And then unfortunately, a lot of times that project doesn't continue to add on to optimize those additional features that are there that those companies have paid for. So that's an excellent way to think about this as well, that if this company, was limited with that, continuing to figure out how to optimize things that they aren't using already is definitely part of the equation there. Very good. So I think that the key to that is certainly thinking differently, right? Yeah. How letting go of those, this is how we do it today assumption, but small incremental changes and focusing in on process too. So what kind of processes could change instead of systems? So here's our challenge for you with this particular episode, your action item. What is it that you can break down into smaller steps and change differently? Think about your optimization of what you're doing with your company. Are there things where you've thought, gosh, we have that, why aren't we using it? This is a great time to bring that back to light, or think about those particular processes where you say there has just got to be a better way. There probably is, if you're thinking that. And if you can't think of anybody of any of those things, ask your team. They'll tell you. There's always something out there that people think there's got to be a better way to do something. All right, before we talk about our cheese for this episode, Kim, I want to ask you about your shirt, because I can see that you enjoy romantic walks, but what else does it say?
Through the cheese department. So
you enjoy romantic walks through the cheese department. Fantastic.
Yes.
All right. So we were talking about what is your alternative to change, right? So we were talking about what is the alternative to cheese, and the alternative cheese could make me kind of sad, except that I really like this kind of stuff. So I was vegan for a couple of years in my past life, that kind of stuff. And if you've ever gotten to experience cheese with a Z, right, then you're probably talking about some kind of cheese alternative. And this is mine, provolone style slices. And what is yours?
It's like a creamy original. I thought maybe it was like a cheddar or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I've had this before, and of course this is a perfect pairing with meatless meat. So if you're ever looking for an example of that, think about, I know of a company called the Herbivorous Butcher, and they're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I love their products, especially their ribs, but they also sell lots of cheeses as well. So Kim and I are going to eat some of our vegan cheese, our cheese alternative. And in the next episode, we are going to talk about how prepackaged cheese or prepackaged change doesn't work. So is it really cheese? So if we talk about prepackaged change in our next episode, this one I'm going to hold the cheese to the end as well for a special surprise because we're going to have some fun with this one. So we're going to go eat some cheese. We'll see you in the next episode. I'm Carrie Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure that you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you. Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you suspect there just has to be a better way and you don't know what it is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.